What's up? Joseph here. The question I have about the iPad mini mostly is, who is this iPad for? And I know a couple people with it. I had it way back in the day, but it seems as the iPhones got bigger, the iPad mini became more obsolete. In my week of testing this thing out, I really learned that this iPad isn't for me. I mean, I have the 12.9 iPad Pro, and that's the one that's for me, and going back and forth, I ended up using that one more. But putting this thing through the ultimate test this week, I think I found out who this iPad is really for. So let's talk the design of this thing. The iPad mini design has changed. This was the first refresh we've seen really since the first one came out. And what we have is, we have a full bezel screen, which is 8.3 inches. We have Touch ID instead of the button that we have all known and kind of shed away from. And then the weirdest thing for me, I think, was the buttons for the volume rocker at the top. At first it didn't make sense, but as you use this thing, and I mostly would use it horizontally, I found that they're really on the side, and that makes sense. And you kind of have to have them there to support what we've added to this new one, and its support for the Apple Pencil. So the display is nothing special. It has the same 400 nits of brightness as the old iPad mini. I mean, the one thing I noticed with this screen from going back and forth from my Pro to this is the refresh rate. This has 60 Hertz and my iPad Pro has 120 Hertz. And it's something that's not noticeable if you're just using the iPad mini and you don't go back to the iPad Pro at all. But if you go back and forth, it's extremely noticeable, and that's something that when you go back and forth, it's hard to kind of go away from. And then we can talk about the battery. I put this thing through the test, kind of doing everything I would do on my iPad Pro for a week, really on this iPad mini. I took it everywhere with me. I had it with me when I went to work. I had it with me when I went to a coffee shop. And I really put this thing through the test and really used it on full brightness and all those things. And I got about 7 to 8 hours on it, which is good, but it's not great. I mean, there'd be times I'd go with my iPad Pro and I'd be getting 3 or 4 days out of it. As an entry-level tablet of this size, and I mean, you go to this size and you get that smaller form factor. With that comes a smaller battery, which comes less battery performance and shorter lifespan before you have to throw it on the charger. And then the camera, again, it's nothing crazy. I've never been a person that's taken photos with a tablet, but you have a 12 megapixel camera, you have the one camera, and on the front you actually have center stage, which I've never used center stage, but it's a pretty cool feature. And I mean, all the iPads have it now, but it's cool that this one got it, and it's great for FaceTiming, and that's really what it's great for. So the bad, there's a lot that I really found hard to do with this iPad. It started with typing. It is extremely hard to type on this thing once you get into the internet or you want to go into a Word document and type something. It became really difficult just because your hand almost takes up the entire screen. The hardest thing was multitasking. I found it so hard to be able to do things in 2 different screens or split screen and do it comfortably. Everything was just way too small for me, and I think that's something that you really take advantage of when you get into that iPad Air, iPad Pro level, is the multitasking that the iPadOS has to offer. And on this, it really lacks it. I mean, you have the whole feature, you have all of that, nothing's locked within it, but the screen real estate is just extremely small to play with. And then the pencil. I mean, the pencil's great. Writing in this thing's cool because you can just throw it in a backpack, take it out and write, and it's literally like the size of a journal, which is great. So writing's easy to do and stuff. But when it comes to writing and typing and long forms of doing things, that's when it gets difficult, because then again, you run into the issue with the screen size. And then I just wanted to touch on some of the apps I use most and how they kind of affected me with this iPad. I use Notion a lot for just project management, and Notion was great at a quick glance of seeing things. When I got into there to scripting and storyboarding, it became hard with the typing, I'm not gonna lie. And like I said, at a quick glance, it was easy. The other app I use a lot is Things 3, and that was the best app on this thing, almost better than my iPad Pro, because at this screen size, it's so easy to have something you can check things off and throw in tasks, and it's just an easy screen size to do that on, and I found this very beneficial for that. And then the other one was Notability and note-taking and taking notes within this iPad, and That was another one that it started out great, but once you get going and going and you're doing more and more, it becomes just a little bit harder with the screen real estate you're dealing with. But then surfing the internet and reading news articles, that was easy and it was great on something this size, and it almost felt natural and more natural than holding the iPad Pro and doing it. And I'm actually borrowing this from my dad because this is his, and the one thing he used it for was reading articles and reading news articles. And I get that, and I see the benefits of it, and watching YouTube videos. And a screen this size, it is easy to watch a YouTube video just on the go. So I see the benefits from that side of things. With this iPad, you're not locked up. You get everything iPadOS has to offer on the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, just in a smaller form factor, so you're not losing out on any features. So who's this for? It's for a student. It's for someone that's going back to school and you just want to throw something small in your backpack to take notes on during class. From watching the keynote of this back when it was announced, apparently it's for pilots and those small plane pilots where this is just something you can plan out a flight route. So it's for them. It's for people like my dad who just wants to read a quick article or check the news really fast on this thing, or go and surf YouTube really quick, or go on Safari and read a news article. It's for someone like that. But what's interesting about this thing is it's for someone who has a specific purpose. When you go out to the Apple Store and you're gonna buy one of these, you know exactly what you're gonna use it for, and that specific purpose is the reason you're buying something at this size. So at the end of the day, you're still getting the A15 chip, you're still getting everything the iPad has to offer. You're not getting what the Air and the Pro have with the M1 chip, but nobody needs that kind of power, so this thing has plenty of power. You get a little limited when it comes to 64 gigs and 256 gigs, but that's where you'll have to make a decision if you want to upgrade or not. You get the accessories, you get the Apple Pencil, you get all the Smart Folio cases this thing has to offer. So you get all of that stuff. And I think the addition of the Apple Pencil on this was a great addition, which really makes this thing go from something that really nobody has a use for to something that a niche population has a use for. For me, I'm sticking with the iPad Pro. I went with this thing for a week and I can't wait to hand it back over to my dad and go back to my iPad Pro. But like I said, it's simple. If you're going out to get this iPad mini, this new one, you know what you're getting it for. You have a specific reason in mind on why you're getting this iPad. But you have to think, at $499 at 64 gigs or $649 at 256 gigs, is that enough? You can get 256 gigs, go up $100 and have an M1 iPad Air. Or you could go down $150 and have the original iPad at 64 gigs where you get almost the exact same amount of features. You have that A15 chip still. But again, that's not what you might be looking for. You might be looking for this exact piece of hardware. So there's some options. There's some reasons why this works for people in their everyday lives. And I think that's why this thing is still in the rotation of iPads for Apple. So that's my review of the iPad mini. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until the next one.